Today on Garbage Time Fantasy Football, we are doing late round values for a Dynasty startup. It's time for Garbage Time. Welcome into Garbage Time Fantasy Football. I'm your host, Ron Seymour, joined today by a special guest, senior writer for The Athletic and host of the All In Football podcast, Mr. Jake Ciely. How are you?
How's it going? I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Good. Like I said earlier, I really appreciate you being on the podcast. It's super awesome for me. I listened to your podcast and followed your work and everything, so I was really excited when you actually said yes.
I'm actually surprised that even after listening to all that, you still wanted me on. So
yeah, I was just, trying to branch out. Sometimes I get tired of talking to the normal people I talk to.
I know the feeling.
So like I said in the beginning, we're going to do late round values for Dynasty startup. Or Dynasty, however you want to say it. That's why we're called Garbage Time Fantasy Football. We mess up words all the time here.
Although you could be like garbage time instead of like Dynasty.
That's right. All right. Since we're limited time here, we will jump right in. I'll let you go first since you're you're the guest.
Well, so do you want me to stick to rookies or just players in general?
Just players in general. Anyone that's going later in a dynasty draft, that might, still have good value for this year, coming years, still really good for your team.
Well, either way, the first one I'll start with a rookie either way.
That's fine.
Because it works for this because there's one that is going I see often in the third round, and you know how desperate people are for running backs in general. I see him creeping into the second round sometimes, but I think more of the fact is so many people got burned last year by Mike Davis that they don't want to go in on Tyler Algier, and I think that's a mistake. Honestly, you talk about the fact that he's going to be the lead of that backfield. Cordarrelle Patterson, as we know, saw his ticks down in the running game. They use him more in the passing game. The reports this offseason is they want him back in the passing game used more often. No matter what way you cut it, even if he gets some carries back, he's the complement to whoever blank is the lead option. And by drafting Algier, I think he's essentially discount Kenneth Walker, because I think Dameon Pierce is discount Kenneth Walker. I think Algier is the discount of the discount. So it's very, very similar. One cut type of back between the tackles, going to be first and second down, small passing game upside. Somebody scored a ton of touchdowns in college, so he knows how to get to the end zone. But it's the Falcons' offense, so we've been burned by it. Don't expect a hell of a lot without Matt Ryan and now Marcus Mariota. They're looking more for 2023 than 2022. But, again, if you're talking 15 touches a game, and Tyler Algier is going to lead that backfield, which he will unless it's a surprise in this preseason he just falls flat on his face, which is always a possibility. But I have him beside my top 35 to 40 running backs in Dynasty starting up right now around the names of Chase Edmonds and Rashod White, who's a backup to Fournette, who's a great one. But that's the names I have him around, and he's going much later in a startup, let alone pretty much almost like a half-round discount on what I think he should be in rookie only.
Yeah, he's definitely someone I got my eye on. I have multiple second-round picks in my rookie draft coming up, so...
Did you take him in there? I took Pierce, Algier, and Isaiah Spiller all in the second. I had multiple seconds too, and I took all three of them.
Well, my dynasty team, my running backs right now are pretty much just Nick Chubb and Rashad Penny. So I'm hurting. So it's going to be a lot of shots on running backs this year.
Yeah, you're taking quite a few shots. Yeah, you're hurting just a little bit there.
All right, one of my first guys, also a rookie, but someone I'm rising on more and more the more I look into it. Wide receiver David Bell, the rookie for the Browns. He's walking into a situation where they just got rid of, Jarvis Landry. They need that slot guy. They brought in Amari Cooper, who I think is a really good wide receiver, but Deshaun Watson can definitely support multiple wide receivers. I think they'll use Anthony Schwartz on the outside opposite of Amari Cooper, and then they'll bring in David Bell for the slot. And I think he could see a bunch of targets this year, assuming that Watson plays all year or most of the year at least, which I think he will play most of the year. But they drafted him early-ish, So I think, he's going wide receiver 53 off the board from the ADPs that I've seen. And I think that's a great value. He could be your fifth, maybe even your sixth wide receiver on your team that could end up sneaking in as a wide receiver 3 value by the end of the year.
Yeah, I like that one too. I actually thought it was a great landing spot for basically whatever wide receiver ended up there. They have a clear need for number 2, and the expectancy, which did happen, was there was no Jarvis Landry coming back, so they need somebody out there. And it wasn't going to be Donovan Peoples-Jones, so I'm with you on that one. So, all right, well, I'm going to go back to running back. I got 2 more running backs, so I'm going back to running back again because everybody wants running backs anyway. We already got a taste of them last year, but I'm looking at startup drafts this year. I think, where is he? He's about 130-ish on ADP right now. And for the clear backup, which I think people forgot how good he looked replacing David Montgomery, Khalil Herbert, if anything were to happen again, if we're ranking pure backups, Khalil Herbert's going to be inside the top 10. He could even push for top 5. And we saw what he could do in that steed when he's there is no David Montgomery. And I don't think he's going away permanently. We've already had talk. This is another one. We've already had talk this offseason that it's going to be run more. The Bears did nothing really essentially to help Justin Fields in the passing game. And I think you're going to see a very similar Ravens offense from not last year, but 2 years ago, even 3 years ago, where Justin Fields becomes like Lamar Jackson and only throws 400 times and is running more. But that also means running more with both running backs. And the fact that Khalil Herbert, you're not going to be excited as an RB3 to have, but you will be happy with his production as a flex running back for the fact of he's going to have weekly value, similar to James White, but not so much of a split from passing to no rushes. I think it'll be more of a split. I think a Kareem Hunt type of value is what I think he could be. And then again, if anything, you know what? I think that's great. I think Khalil Herbert should be more around the no, I would not draft him at Kareem Hunt, but I think he should be treated as more like Kareem Hunt than where 130. That's way too late for the fact of what he can bring to the table, especially again if Montgomery goes down.
Well, yeah, you mentioned Kareem Hunt. Also, Tony Pollard, I think, is right there too.
Yes,
can be involved week to week, but insane upside if the starter goes down. I really like that. All right, so I will go with someone who's being drafted at running back 50 right now. A little bit, midway in the startup, but it's Darrell Henderson. And this just goes to, they didn't really they brought in one guy, but I don't really know too much about him. But Cam Akers, coming off that Achilles, didn't look great in the playoffs. They tried using him, but he wasn't, didn't look like his old self. If anything happens to where Cam Akers just can't come back right, I don't think Sean McVay would be too quick to, put Darrell Henderson out there. He looked good when he got the chance. So it might be more of a split. It could be all Henderson if Cam Akers just can't get going again. But I think Darrell Henderson is someone you want on your rosters because the potential of being the guy in that high-powered offense is there. And you want, with these later picks, you want someone like that over someone who needs about 3 or 4 injuries to be relevant.
Yeah, and that's another backfield which is kind of similar to the Browns in the fact that I don't know that we get Sean McVay turning to anybody in that backfield 20 times a game just from Akers' injury history, Darrell Henderson's injury history. So, I think Darrell Henderson's a smart one, and we saw him last year too. So I'm going to go super deep. I'm going way deeper on this one, which a lot of people, for talking about backup running backs, might assume that he's not the backup, but I like the talent more than Samaje Perine, and that's Chris Evans. I think Chris Evans was one of the more well-rounded running backs late in the draft last year, who I think if you're looking at the future to replace Joe Mixon, if he goes down, I think Chris Evans brings more to the table than Samaje Perine. Now, he's going to have to take a step forward this year to get past Perine, but I don't think that's inconceivable given Perine being a decent, not great talent. If you told me side by side which running back I'd rather have Chris Evans. And I'm going to bet on the talent potentially winning out this year. And then again, Joe Mixon, who finally had a nice healthy season, but has had plenty of injuries himself through the past couple of seasons. I think Evans brings a little bit more balance in the passing game too. So I think Evans would be the one I'm taking before P. Ryan as Mixon's backup. And that alone makes him a great value because everybody's still leaning towards P. Ryan.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of reminds me of the Commanders' backfield where McKissick has his own role. Like P. Ryan has his own role. Chris Evans would be the backup to Joe Mixon, like the direct backup. And then P. Ryan would have his own role, kind of like how McKissick does for the Commanders.
Yeah.
Still hard to say the Commanders after all this time.
We'll get used to it after a while.
Yeah, hopefully. I did just hear that they bought 100 acres of land in
Virginia.
Virginia. Yeah. Who knows? Maybe they're moving again. They don't like their name. They're going to change it all over again. Another wide receiver is wide receiver 99 right now. I think he's like 243 overall or something like that. This is kind of a long shot, but Amari Rodgers in Green Bay. Yes, they brought in the rookie Christian Watson. They have Alan Lazard, Sammy Watkins. Aaron Rodgers likes his trust in his wide receivers. Amari Rodgers was a wide receiver they drafted last year. I think he'd come in, have a little bit more trust than some of these other guys that just got brought in, could potentially see an uptick in his workload, which was practically nothing last year. But I think, Aaron Rodgers is going to throw for his yards and his touchdowns. And you kind of got to take a shot on which wide receiver you think it's going to be. And Amari Rodgers is super late, so you can grab one of the other guys early and him later if you wanted, just to make sure that you have one of the pieces on that offense that should still be really good going forward.
Yeah, I think that's just taking a gamble on whoever might turn out to be valuable there for the Packers is definitely warranted. So my first wide receiver that I was going to is not too far from him. Right now, this is another one that he's listed as third, but I'm going to go back to last year's draft and coming out of college, everybody's saying, size, speed, skill to great wide receiver. He just needs to clean up his routes. He needs to be smarter. And I kept comparing him to Marquise Lee from years and years and years ago, who Marquise Lee got away with being dominant in college and ran lazy routes. And it took him a few years. So hopefully Terrace Marshall only takes 1 year to learn that instead of multiple like Marquise Lee. But we saw Robbie Anderson take a huge step back last year, and maybe part of it, obviously, quarterback play. And as of today, quarterback play might be just as poor. But again, I'm going to go skill, talent, potential here. And if he beats out Robbie Anderson or DJ Moore misses time, but the talent is still there. Like people write off players way too quick. You just look at the second-year players just from last year's draft that people are writing. People are writing off Trevor Lawrence already. He was supposed to be generational talent, and people are like, "Oh, Trevor Lawrence sucks." But Terrace Marshall, for the ability that he has, again, it's on him to be more precise at the NFL and clean up everything that he was doing lazily at college, but the talent, if they can coach him up, which the reports haven't been great so far, but if they can, I think that even if he's the number 3, that's not appealing for fantasy consistency, but he'll be on our radar. And then again, he has the ability to jump to be that number 2 in that offense.
Yeah, I like that. A lot of people have Terrence Marshall just left for dead, thinking there's nothing going to be there anymore after 1 year. Yeah, it's wild. I like to wait at least 2 years before I let people up for dead. So actually, one of my co-hosts here has a question for you. He put it in the comment. He's actually at work. Wants to know if you see Devin Duvernay as a sleeper due to his ability to stretch the field.
So similar to the Titans, I have zero interest in the third option in the passing game in both offenses. And the third option for the Ravens is Duvernay. I like Duvernay. I like them coming in out of Texas, but I think that ability is not going to be okay. So Dynasty, sure, why not? then that's what we're talking. If you're in a deeper league with more starting spots, also sure, why not? But in your standard even dynasty where you only start 3 wide receivers, 2 in a flex, I just don't see him getting in your lineup because I think Rashod Bateman's the true talent, and it's Rashod Bateman, Mark Andrews, and then I don't want the third piece. I don't want, and that's what it is. It's the third piece, and I don't want it. Same thing as you look at the Titans. It's always been, it's Derek Henry. Well, then what are the 2 options? And honestly, even there, the second option hasn't even been that great. It's been A.J. Brown and then tight end, maybe wide receiver second. But so that's where I go. I think that Duvernay is going to make more of a NFL impact than he were for fantasy purposes. I am a Bateman fan. I am all over Rashod Bateman. If he's being undervalued in your league, that's where I would go. But Duvernay, interestingly enough, you bring up that question. I've seen some people talk about it, and I would actually, as crazy as it sounds, it's not like you're going to get a huge value back on him, but I would consider selling high depending on who's willing to offer what. Because again, even when Marquise Brown was there, how often do we want the second option? We didn't. It was Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews. We never wanted the third. So I think people are thinking that there's a potential here, and that's why I would, again, sell high. Maybe you can trick somebody into a second rounder for next year, and if that's the case, I would.
All right. Since my co-hosts are all working right now and apparently on lunch break, we got one more question from another one. And he's, as a ridiculous Bears homer, he has to ask on Darnell Mooney, and you see him having potential to be a number 1. What's his ceiling?
I think his ceiling is what we've already seen. Potential number 1, no. I think what his skill set is great, and I think he was overlooked, and we're seeing what he can do. But I think even with the way that Allen Robinson looked last year, having somebody alongside of him, I think being the number 1 is going to spell trouble for him. Similar to Juju Smith-Schuster. There are certain wide receivers out there who need somebody on their talent level or even slightly better. I go all the way back to the Anquan Boldin days, and I was like, you remember how good Anquan Boldin was, and then when he was by himself as the number 1, was still good, just not as great. And no, I'm not saying Darnell Mooney's even Anquan Boldin, but I'm saying Darnell Mooney, volume is going to keep him inside the top 30, and that's fine, and he is a nice talent. But Byron Pringle, the rest, I mean, they brought in Equanimeous St. Brown. They drafted a 25-year-old slot receiver. Like, there's nothing here. Like, I love Cole Kmet because of the opportunities. I think the 1 and 2 on this team are Mooney and Kmet, similar to the Ravens situation. But again, I got to keep going back. I think the Bears and the Ravens are going to be a lot similar than people might expect this year. And for that case, I think Mooney could be like Marquise Brown. But again, what is that? That's 25th-ish wide receiver with some very highs and some very lows and some inconsistency in there. So, if he still had an Allen Robinson healthy like talent next to him, I could see him cracking maybe the top 20, but I think where we've seen from him is better than expected, than anybody thought from last year, but I think we've kind of seen, like, this is how good he is.
I don't know what happened.
Internet sucks. You got time for one more?
Yeah, let's each roll through one more. Oh! I literally had to unplug everything. All right, so
could have gone to a coughing fit.
Yeah.
I was just in your chat. All right, so one more each before we get out of here.
Yeah, let's do one more each. All right.
I'm sure you have plenty of time to think about one.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with. I wrote a couple down. I don't know which one I want to do. Let's go. All right, I'm gonna go with who's being drafted running back 47 off the board in Dynasty startups. It's Ronald Jones, picked up by the Chiefs. I don't know how much trust they have in CEH over there. I know he was drafted in the first round, still on his rookie deal, but it seems like they're always trying to bring people in to complement or maybe even replace him. He's never been really that great around the goal line. And I think Ronald Jones comes in, steals some of the shorter yardage work and the goal line work. Could be a very good offense. They might switch to more heavy run after losing Tyreek Hill. I think the value is there. and he could take over the number one running back of this backfield. I don't think CEH is that good to where he can hold Ronald Jones off. I think Ronald Jones has kind of had a bad rap due to, fumbles and Bruce Arians benching him as soon as he fumbles.
Yeah, I could definitely see. I'm kidding.
No, I was good.
You should have been able to tell from the flickering back here.
Well,
anyway,
I'm not that confident in life right now, so.
No, I think Ronald Jones is definitely. I'm not even the biggest Ronald Jones fan, but I think that's definitely a good call given the opportunity. And yet they definitely, as you said, don't seem to want CEH to be more than 15 touches a game, which is fine given his ability. So, all right, I'll let you pick. Do you want me to pick one of the two I mentioned in the chat or completely off the board? Because I had one more that I didn't mention. I mentioned a wide receiver, a tight end, and then I have another wide receiver that I didn't even put in there.
The one you didn't even put in there.
Okay, so I said Paris Campbell, Cole Kmet. I'm actually talking about Cole Kmet on the site in a few days. So I'll say Joshua Palmer. And it's mostly because everybody's on Guyton, who I think is pretty skill limited. I think he's a fine piece for this offense. But if I'm talking about, again, I'm always going to go to talent. I'm always going to go to the more complete player. I think Joshua Palmer, everybody got excited for him a brief time last year. And then everybody thinks Guyton, and now you look at year two, so year three and all that type of stuff for all these players. But year two for him, I think he could be the 3. And we've seen Mike Williams is by far not mostly health reliant out there. Has finally taken his time to take a step forward himself. But if he misses any time, if Keenan Allen at this point of his career misses any time, Joshua Palmer, I think is the one that you can almost get for nothing right now. I think he's going in the 90s, 80s, 90s, even potentially 100s for wide receiver. And I like him more as a wide receiver than Guyton. Not that I think Guyton's bad. I just think Guyton is the 4. I think Palmer has more upside. And again, this is another one who's behind somebody that everybody else is taking. So Joshua Palmer, and as well as I like Paris Campbell. Although his is a little tougher because I think he's locked into the slot, but I do love some Cole Kmet. I'll let you know that right now.
Yeah, I'm pretty high on Cole Kmet this year too, just because outside of Darnell Mooney, I think he's the only other legitimate pass catcher in that offense.
120 targets incoming. It's coming.
All right. Well, again, I appreciate you being on here. I'm sorry about my internet deciding it wanted to die for a little bit there.
I mean, it really happens, man. It's no big deal. I mentioned in the chat, I had a show one time and I tickled my throat and I was trying to talk through it. And then I just started this uncontrollable cough on air. So it happens. We got like 10, 11 players in. So
yeah, something like that. All right. Make sure you like and subscribe here on YouTube at Garbage Time Fantasy Football, where I got our Twitter at garbage_timeff, our website, www.garbagetimeff.com. Leave us voicemails, hate mails, whatever you feel like. Probably after this episode.
If you stuck through the entire delay, you should definitely like and subscribe.
Yeah. Oh, man. Anything you want to say before we get out of here?
No, I appreciate it. And it was a good talk. I had some fun just talking with other people in the chat while we were waiting for you to come
always
back.
Fun on Garbage Time Fantasy Football. That's
See?
What we do.
Even when things go to crap.
All right. We will see you next time, Heckling Fandom. Thank you.